Hi, I'm Karina, and I must have made a big mistake. From the outside, it looks crazy. But I didn't think it would turn out like this. I'm 16, I'm a senior, and I've spent most of my senior year studying. Not that I like it, but to get into a good university, you need high scores. Special pain is mathematics. Equations, geometry puzzles, whatever you take, I get it very difficult. Sometimes with homework, Diana helps me. She is my best friend. We were sitting in class after school, and she was explaining things to me. It was Friday. I was sweating over homework all by myself. Diana and her parents were out of town for the weekend, and suddenly, there was a pleasant voice overheard.
You gonna be here all night?
Looking up, I met a handsome guy who was holding a stack of textbooks neatly. And I could see the bag on his shoulder that the teachers usually wore. I heard that a new teacher came to our school. I'm sorry, I forgot all about the time with these problems. I jumped.
Can I help?
Guy looked in his notebook. It's a complicated subject. This is definitely the new teacher Diana told me about. You're the new teacher, right, Mr.
Let's just David. What don't you understand?
And David sat down beside me. He had such a soft and pleasant voice. I found myself staring into his mouth. David explained the subject to me in 10 minutes, and so readily that I decided on my own homework. Thank you, Mr. David. He smiled and said he'd walk me to the bus stop because it was already dark outside. It was a strange feeling. A teacher was walking by me, but we were chatting on various subjects, laughing, joking. At the bus stop, a bus arrived, and I drove home, waving goodbye to David. He stayed with me all night and all weekend. I wanted to know more about him. There was no information on the school's website about a teacher named David. I didn't know his name, and his curiosity was just sorted out. After Monday, I could hardly wait to look for him at break time, in the cafeteria, in the schoolyard, but in vain. 3 days had passed. David had vanished. Diane and I agreed to stay after class again. There was a new geometry topic, and I didn't understand anything. I was sitting in class, waiting for my friend from practice.
Let me guess. Math again.
The familiar voice sounded in the classroom. David! With joy inside me, everything trembled. Where were you? Why didn't I see you? Wait, it's the teacher. I can't behave like that with him, but my eyes spoke instead of me. This time I decided to cheat, closing the notebook. I looked at David with challenge. You know, I already did, but thanks for asking. David hesitated for less than a minute, and then we went for a walk. He dragged me to the city park for rides. It wasn't much of a crowd, but I was still tense. What if someone saw me with my teacher? And David didn't care. We took a few rides on the Ferris wheel on the roller coaster and ran into the panic room where we laughed until we cried. Thank you. I haven't had so much fun in a long time. I was saying goodbye to David when he took me home tonight. He squeezed my hand gently and touched my temple with his lips. I walked home on my cotton buds. The place was burning. Butterflies fluttered in my stomach, and my head trembled with thoughts. What was it? If the school found out about this, David would at least be reprimanded. Is it my fault? I had to talk to someone, now. I called Diana, but she didn't answer. I couldn't wait. Taxi, and in 20 minutes, I was knocking on the door of her house. We were friends for a long time, so her mom let me in without a problem. I ran up the stairs. The door to Diana's room had been opened, and I heard silent voices. And I knew both of them well, which made me uncomfortable. David was in Diana's room. I was frozen listening. She needs to explain. This teacher fiction is terrible.
We'll tell you tomorrow. That's not why I came. I like you, Diane.
I became very dizzy. He likes my girlfriend. And the teacher he played for me. It's unbearable. I turned around and quickly ran around, pushing Diana's mother. Are you leaving, Karina? But I was already running on the way. Tears caught my eyes. Why are they so with me? Suddenly I got the headlights and there was a sharp sound of brakes. The car miraculously stopped right in front of me. There came a pale... David? Stay away from me! You disgust me, you hear me?
Diana, please calm down. You've got it all wrong. It was Robin who was at Diana's house. And I'm his twin brother, David. You and I rode the Ferris wheel.
I was trembling. No more strength. I cried. And suddenly the guy hugged me. I don't know how long we've been standing like this, but his shirt was soaking wet from my tears. When I calmed down, David put me in the car and started the engine. Everything seemed to slow down. Suddenly before me, I saw the starry sky, and below stretched the night city.
This is my favorite spot. I hang out here a lot at night.
The guy started slow, and then he told me how Robin met Diana at practice. And he really liked her, but he didn't dare tell her. But Diane told me about her friend Karina, me, and David had a plan.
Brother wanted to get close to Diana through you.
David admitted that at first he saw me as entertainment. He was amused by the fact that I thought he was a teacher.
But the second meeting changed everything. I didn't play, I didn't pretend. I was really good with you, and I want to start from scratch.
I was looking at the starry sky and I couldn't believe it was really happening to me. I liked David. That's why I'm so screwed because of everything I heard at Diana's house. And he seems sincere now. I put my head on his shoulder and we sat there in silence for a long time. A week has passed since then. I'm ignoring Diana, although she asked me to listen to her a few times. David picked me up at school today. She saw it. And a few minutes later, I got a message from her saying, "I'm glad you're happy at that price." I'm really happy now, but not to the end. Diana's trust is lost. Would I forgive that? When a friend is trying to get a guy to go out with you for your own good? I don't know. If you have an answer, please write to me. My name is Amber. It is very difficult for me to trust people because from the very childhood, my closest ones betrayed me. Look, my life was nearly ruined, and now I'm trying to recover. Until the age of 7, I had the usual happy childhood. Mom, dad, and a year younger sister, Beth. We lived outside the city and spent all of our times indoors. But the fact that they loved Beth more than I really messed things up. They never asked how I was, did not regret if I fell off the bike and broke my knee, did not hug or kiss me. But as soon as Beth whimpered, both dad and mom immediately began to worry. As I grew up, their indifference towards me also grew. I even thought that maybe I was adopted. That's why they treat me like that. And when it was time for me to go to school, something terrible happened. I'll tell you everything in a minute. But for now, please subscribe to the channel and click on the bell. Thank you. So the summer was coming to an end. Once returning from a walk, near the house I saw an old car. And when I entered the house, I froze. 2 of my suitcases were collected in the corridor. An unfamiliar woman was sitting in the kitchen. I didn't like her right away. And when my mother saw me, she saw that today I was going to a boarding school. I will live and study there. I realized that they want to get rid of me forever. I started crying and asking my mother not to do this, but no one heard me. Miss Morton was the name of the woman who came to pick me up. She was a boarding school teacher and an old friend of her mother. Grabbing my hand, she pulled me into the car. I spent the next 5 years in a boarding school. There were very strict rules here. Everything was scheduled by the hour, and it was necessary to unconditionally adhere to the regime. Otherwise, punishment. I adapted to the school rules, but still, she didn't trust anyone. She was on her own. One afternoon, I heard terrible screams in the hallway of the school and saw Miss Morton wringing the hands of a strange girl. "Miss Morton, please! I can talk to her and explain to her how to behave." I approached them. The teacher nodded at me. I never rebelled, so I earned some trust in school. She left, and I carefully looked at the girls. "I won't live here. This must be hell. My parents decided to punish me for bad behavior, but it's terrible." "You'd better calm down. Let's go," I whispered. I was able to calm down Susie, that was the name of the girl, and they put her in my room. We suddenly became friends. She said that she was from a very rich family, and her parents always spoiled her. But recently she got in touch with a bad company, started to conflict with mom and dad, left home. Therefore, she was assigned here. So strange. It turns out that Susie was placed here because her parents love her a lot and they are afraid of losing her. And me, because no one needs me in this world. I told Susie my story, and we sobbed together for a long time. Her parents arrived 2 months later. They turned out to be very nice people, especially her mother.
Amber, Susie told us your story. We want to take you into our family, if you don't mind. You will become a sister to Susie and a daughter to us.
I was so happy. At the age of 13, I finally felt so much love and concern. My happiness was not overshadowed even by the news that, it turns out, my biological parents wrote a rejection of me a long time ago. Susie and I started going to an elite school, and she introduced me to everyone as her sister, so another 4 years flew by. I have a boyfriend, Kevin now. He was the son of friends of my new parents, and we met at a dinner party. We were good together. For the winter holidays, he invited me to spend the weekend by the ocean. Kevin booked a luxurious hotel room on the beach. Such beauty was simply breathtaking. We planned to go snorkeling. Kevin encouraged me to go diving. We laughed, argued, hugged each other, waiting at the reception of the administrator. "How can I help you, young people?" Suddenly came from behind, and goosebumps ran down my back. It was my biological mother. "Hello," as if nothing had happened, she said. I was furious. "How? Where?" Pulling a surprised Kevin into a corner, I whispered, "We need to find another hotel. I don't like it here." But Kevin was nodding his head. There are very few hotels on the island, and there were no rooms available when he booked. "Okay. I won't let her spoil my holiday, but I won't talk to her either." We settled in the room. The view from the window was magnificent. The weather is fantastic, but I was actually very nervous. After lunch at the hotel restaurant, we went for a swim in the ocean. Kevin rented a yacht. We went on board and settled down on the upper deck. Everything was perfect. "Welcome aboard, young people!" And I was shocked again. As a child, this voice often scolded and scolded me for any, even the smallest misconduct. It was my biological father. He stood and squinted from the sun on the deck of the yacht. Well, that was too much. "What's going on here? This is not a random meeting, Kevin. Did you do that?" I didn't want to admit it, but there were no other explanations.
Amber, give them a chance to explain themselves, please. They regret what they did to you.
"I don't believe a single word they say, Kevin. And now I don't believe you either. How could you?"
Suddenly, my father stepped towards me. Kevin, thank you for helping us. Now I'm on my own. We need to talk to Amber, alone.
But seeing the panic on my face, Kevin protested. Father did not tolerate when someone began to argue with him. Without thinking twice, he jumped up to Kevin and pushed him hard. A minute later, the guy disappeared under the water.
Don't worry, daughter. We're close to the coast. He will get out. Mommy and I need your help.
I didn't even have time to blink my eyes when suddenly my father grabbed my waist with one hand and covered my mouth with another. In the palm of his hand was some kind of cloth or a handkerchief. I took a deep breath, wanted to scream, but instead everything swam before my eyes. I woke up in the hospital. I was in the room. Hands and feet were tied. My biological mother stood next to me and smiled contentedly. "Hi, darling. You've come to your senses. Great. Everything is ready for the operation. The nurse will be here soon. What have you done to me?" I barely whispered. "So far, nothing, but you will become a donor for our Beth. You are the older sister, so you should always help the younger one." I hoped this was a terrible dream. I couldn't move. A terrible weakness, and there was a crazy woman standing nearby who wanted to use me for some of her diabolical purposes. "You abandoned me. Threw it out like a kitten on the street, do you remember? Leave me alone! Help!" I understood that I needed to attract the attention of the staff in order to stop this switch. But suddenly something sharp pierced my hand, and I lost my mind. I don't know how long I was so unconscious, but as if through thick glass I heard Kevin's voice. "Amber! Amber, wake up!" I opened my eyes. An operating room, some instruments. To my left, a girl was lying on the operating table. She seemed to be sleeping. An alarmed Kevin leaned over me. "Are you okay?" With difficulty, I nodded in response. "I'll get you out of here. The police have already surrounded the building. Your biological parents cannot escape." I nodded back and drifted off to sleep. A week has passed since that day. I am at home, under the supervision of doctors. I come to my senses. Kevin and Susie never leave my side. Parents,
I'm talking about Susie's mom and dad. Also constantly ask how I am. And I'm fine because I'm surrounded by people who love me. The story of my insane biological parents who kidnapped me made the news. They are in custody and an investigation is underway. As it turned out, my mother had suffered from schizophrenia for a long time, and recently her condition worsened. She kept Beth, my little sister, locked up under total control, giving her constant sedatives. Due to stress and medication, Beth became ill. Her kidneys began to fail. And my mother decided that I would become a donor for her beloved Beth. He and my dad found out where I lived, put me under surveillance, and got Kevin to help them. Of course, they explained to him that they just wanted to talk to me and ask for forgiveness for abandoning me. And they themselves began to implement their crazy plan. There, on the yacht, when Kevin found himself in the water, he was lucky. The rescuers noticed a man in the water and pulled him out. He did not find the yacht, but he was able to find me using the application on his phone. The beacon indicated that I was in the local hospital. Kevin didn't hesitate. He called the police, let Susie's parents know, and risked everything to sneak into the hospital to save me. And he did it! They did not manage to do any harm to me, although Beth, under anesthesia, was already waiting for my kidney in the operating room. Now I constantly replay this story in my head. I'm lucky to have loving people around me who will always come to help and never betray. It remains only to learn to trust them, which is very, very difficult for me. But I will try. I hope you liked my story. Thanks for watching to the end. For this, you have a prize. Write in the comments what name would you like to give the heroine in the next story. I will wait.
Hi, I'm Meg, and I'm in a very difficult situation. This can be called a love triangle, but in reality, everything is much more complicated. Listen to me, please. Suddenly advise how to behave. We met Michael in a cafe. I took the only empty seat next to a handsome stranger. He smiled at me. That's how we got to know each other. It turned out that Michael, like me, was in his senior year, but he studies remotely as he devotes all his time to singing and dancing, and also goes to acting classes. Michael was so focused. And I liked him right away, and it turned out that it was mutual because the next day, Michael asked me on a date in a cafe, and everything started spinning. I was in seventh heaven. After all, I have such a talented guy, but I didn't rejoice for long. Why? I'll tell you in a minute. But for now, please subscribe to the channel and click on the bell. Thank you. We met for about a month, but began to see each other less and less. Michael was on his nerves, soon casting in a new youth group where he madly wanted to get into. I understood everything and supported him very much. Casting has been successfully completed. Michael was chosen from hundreds of applicants, and the jury liked him so much that he was offered a personal project. The producer wanted to turn Michael into a real idol. I already imagined all the girls in the class would be jealous of me when they found out that I was dating a real star. The next day, Michael left for rehearsals. He was busy from early morning until late at night. At first, he excitedly wrote to me how everything was going, but after a week, the messages from him stopped. He also did not answer calls. But I understood everything. My boyfriend works hard to become famous. Once I came to school, I noticed that the girls were discussing something enthusiastically. Looking over one of them, I saw photos of my Michael. It turned out that he has a new account in social networks, which is being actively promoted. There are videos from rehearsals and Michael's streams and even spicy photos from training. And what is most surprising, now he is not Michael, but Jean. Classmates vied with each other discussing him, looking for merch with the image of Jin, and I wanted to scream. This is my boyfriend. Do not touch him. I'm over it. I don't want to share it with anyone. I called Michael, but he didn't answer. I called his producer, threw a tantrum, and he said that we can meet in the evening with Jean. I was hoping that we will talk with my boyfriend. I will tell about my feelings and we will find a way out of this impasse. But Michael just handed me a list of rules that are written in his contract. He has no right to date anyone. Relationships can be started, but everything must be hidden from the public. I'm not allowed to like his photo on social networks and to correspond on his page. And if anyone finds out about us, Michael must deny everything. Like, we don't know her and I came up with everything. This is the answer prepared for the press. And what kind of relationship will this be, Michael? You better call me Jean, Meg. Another person was looking at me. Sleek, handsome, with a pumped-up body, inexpensive clothes, but with empty, tired eyes. Not my Michael. Tears choked me, and in order not to burst into tears right there, I ran away. Needless to say, Michael did not even try to catch up with me. Weeks went by. I didn't leave the house. I always took everything very close to my heart, but this time, I covered it to the fullest. There was no appetite. I started losing weight rapidly. Everything around suddenly lost its colors and became black and white. I could look at pictures of Michael for hours. During this time, his career began to gain momentum. The first single was released, which hit the top of the charts. The shooting of the video was being prepared, rehearsals were in full swing, and the worst thing is that Michael appeared at events hugging different girls. Models, bloggers, aspiring singers. I understood that these were just mutually beneficial agreements, but it still hurt me a lot. Seeing that I was getting worse and worse, my mother dragged me to a psychologist. I already had experience with her when my father died, and then therapy helped me a lot. The first few sessions were unbearable. I sobbed a lot, but it helped clear up the picture. I fell in love with this beautiful picture called Michael, became obsessed with him, and now I'm withdrawal. The psychologist explained that I needed to find myself, understand who I am, love yourself, become significant to yourself, and stop looking for an idol. Honestly, I didn't understand how this could be done. I'm an ordinary girl with no special talents. Sometimes I draw scribbles when I'm nervous. It helps. And the psychologist seized on it. I started going to art therapy. Then I went to art school, and it really took me. I drew all the time, studied art history, attended various master classes, brilliantly passed the exam papers at the end of the year, and my teacher took some of my works to the exhibition. I came to the opening. The art gallery was in the center of the city. The exhibition is big, and there were a lot of people from the very beginning. I stood, looked at my canvases, and did not believe that it was me who painted it. Very interesting solution, right? There was an attractive guy next to me. He looked at my paintings appraisingly. Emotions raged inside, so I could only nod in response. Do you know who the author is? I would like to purchase them. I'm the author, I whispered. The guy immediately smiled warmly and extended his hand to me. My name is Derek. I am fond of art, especially this direction. Are the paintings for sale? He had such big shiny eyes that I began to drown in them. Derek was 24 years old. He just graduated from university. I have always been fond of art, interior design, and now I am looking for myself. Parents are doing a comprehensive renovation in the house and asked him to fill the space of the house with interesting paintings. And now my paintings will fit perfectly into the interior. Derek told me this in a cozy cafe, where he invited me to sit after the exhibition. And he asked me to draw a few more paintings in the same style. He bought all of my works, and for good money. I couldn't believe it. But after that, orders poured in on me. There were even regular customers. I was able to help my mother, and I constantly wanted to pinch myself. Is this really happening to me for real? Derek started courting me. Dinners, walks on the water, excursions to museums. With each new meeting, we realized that we had a lot in common. I shared everything with him, but kept quiet about the story with Michael. I stopped following him a long time ago. There was neither time nor desire for this. After a couple of months, Derek suggested that I organize my own exhibition. He took care of all the technical issues. He found a hall, paid for several articles about me in the media, invited the right people, and the show went great. The entire urban beau monde gathered. Several paintings were bought at once. Many wanted to collaborate with me. I don't even know how to thank you, Derek. I hugged him tightly after the show. For the first time, they took such care of me and my interests. To celebrate this event, Derek invited me to his house. Look how your first canvases fit into the interior. Parents are just delighted. And they really want to get to know you. When I saw Derek's house and his parents, I was shocked. He was huge, just a palace. I had no idea that Derek's family was so rich. His parents greeted me very warmly. We chatted in the living room, discussing my work. There was a feeling that we had known each other for a very long time. Music was playing. We were all laughing loudly at something when suddenly Derek's mother abruptly stumbled and looked at the door. I followed her gaze and almost froze. Michael stood on the threshold of the room. He was pale. There were dark shadows under his eyes. His hands were hidden in his pockets. And his eyes, he seemed to be looking through us. Derek's mom ran up to him and pulled him out of the room by the hand. Dad followed her. Derek and I were alone in the room. I was silent, and I couldn't figure out what it was. Suddenly, Derek said in a low voice, "I'm sorry. He wasn't supposed to be here. It can be seen that the nurse has gone somewhere, but he is harmless." "Who is he?" And Derek explained that it was his younger brother, Michael, that he dreamed all his life of becoming popular, of becoming an idol, so that thousands of girls all over the world would go crazy for him. But in the end, I almost went crazy myself. He could not stand the competition, strict rules, the resume, and also with the girl he loved. The producers forced him to disperse. Now he is on sedatives, undergoing therapy, and I hope the moment will come when our cheerful and smiling Michael will return to himself. This story gave me goosebumps. So Michael didn't cope, and apparently today he didn't recognize me. Because of the sedatives? I didn't know how to react to this. Should I tell Derek that the girl Michael was forced to break up with was me? Derek interrupted my thoughts by suggesting a walk in the evening garden. A month has passed since then. I fall more and more in love with Derek, attentive, caring, able to appreciate me. Yesterday he offered to live together. And also gave a ring. Yes, Derek and I are now engaged. I am well received in his family. My mother gets along well with Derek. And only I sometimes wake up in the night in a cold sweat. The secret about my relationship with Michael haunts me. I saw him a few more times, but Michael does not react to me in any way. Should I tell Derek about everything? After all, everything secret always becomes clear. What if it ruins our relationship? I don't know what to do. What would you do? Write in the comments. I'll be waiting.
Clara, I think that's my name. Over the past month, I've gone through a lot of names in my head, and only Clara causes excitement. I don't tell anyone about this. I feel like I'm in danger. It's hard to believe, I know, but it's true. And by subscribing to the channel, you will find many more interesting stories. Let's start with the facts. The people I live with are definitely not my parents, although they try to seem like them, but they are both blondes with light eyes. And I am a burning brunette. Lynn and Marietta, that's the name of these so-called mom and dad, are very tall, and I'm short. Yes, and I just feel like we are strangers. I don't have any memories associated with them. Although they are supposedly my childhood photos hanging on the walls, but in them, I'm blonde. We live in a big house high in the mountains.
Sonia, are you awake yet? Pancakes are on the table.
Oh, that's my name. Sonia. But I'm sure that's not my name. It all started about a month ago. I woke up in this room. Marietta woke me up. Lynn was drinking coffee downstairs. We sat down to have breakfast. From the outside, it seemed like it was an ordinary family morning. And at first, I tried to convince myself of this, but in vain. A couple of times, I asked Marietta what was wrong with me. She gently stroked my head and told me that I had a slight concussion. We were riding bicycles and I fell.
It will pass. Don't worry, honey.
But her lips were trembling treacherously at that moment. And in the evening, I heard her and Lynn whispering about something in the kitchen. She probably told him. I started a diary and began to write down the events that happened to me throughout the day. Maybe I have memory lapses? I once watched a film about a girl who remembered only today. What if the same thing happens to me? It was also strange that I did not go to school. Marietta explained that the local school was undergoing renovations, and it was too far to get to another city. That's why I'm homeschooled.
And what surprised me the most was that I didn't have a mobile phone and a laptop, only a TV with a certain set of channels. Moreover, only entertainment programs, series, cartoons, shows, and no news. And there was no landline phone in the house. Lynn left early and returned late. Marietta was always at home. Sometimes she called somewhere, but always went into another room. I read, walked around the yard, watched TV. There were no neighbors. The house was surrounded by forest on both sides. Lynn brought the food. We had dinner. Then I went to bed. It all seemed like nothing unusual, but putting all the facts together, I realized that this is complete isolation. Me from the world. And no matter how hard these two tried to play family with me, I understood that they were deceiving me. But I wasn't afraid. I observed, analyzed, listened. One evening, I overheard a snippet of a telephone conversation. The door was not tightly closed, and Marietta seemed to be reporting to someone. Within normal limits, she behaves appropriately. She doesn't show aggression and doesn't ask questions. Yeah, so I was not mistaken. Maybe I was stolen. I read stories about how children from rich families are kidnapped, taken to such houses on the outskirts, and waited for the unfortunate parents to collect the ransom money. But why don't I remember anything? Or maybe I'm participating in some kind of scientific experiment. My memory was erased. And they will soon introduce another one? Maybe I'm destined for the role of a kamikaze killer? Or a spy? Wow, these thoughts sometimes made my head spin. But I kept waiting for the day to come when everything would change dramatically. It will just turn upside down. But my diary was almost completely covered. And that day never came. It's morning again. We have pancakes and tea. Marietta is laughing. Yes, I'm tired of all of this. Shut up! Suddenly, it was as if not me, but someone else threw a pancake at the woman sitting opposite. She turned pale, and she immediately pulled the fork and knife that were lying near my plate in her direction. Ha! So you are afraid of me. Apparently, my grin scared Marietta even more. She moved to the far corner of the room. Sonia, everything is fine. If I don't like pancakes, I'll make something else.
Marietta tried to speak calmly, but her hands were shaking. And suddenly, it was as if I saw myself from the outside. One jump, and I squeezed Marietta's neck with my hands. Something in my head kept telling me, "Don't stop!" But instead, the hands only tightened their grip on the woman's throat. She tried to tear me away from her, greedily gasped for air, shouted something, and then began to weaken. And suddenly, I heard some rustling, then a dull thud and darkness. So, there was no aggression for almost a month. Not bad at all. I heard a voice as if through the wall. She opened her eyes. Oh, the room has changed. Just bare walls and windows. And bars on the windows. What? I tried to get up, but something was holding my arms and legs tightly. I've been tied up. Hello. The doctor bent over me. How are you? My throat was dry. I could only nod in her response. Her eyes stared at the woman's white coat. There was a badge hanging on it. Clara. Oh, this word always causes excitement. That's all right. For now, you can rest here. Calm down, and your parents and I will think about how to help you. And then I saw Marietta crying. Her neck was red. Bruises were visible. She was clutching my diary in her hands. Which one is this already? The 7th. I'll analyze it. Suddenly, there are positive changes. Then I saw Lynn. Doctor, it hurts me to look at her. After all, this is my daughter, my blood, but she is sick. There is no point in being angry with her. And Marietta is suffering so much. Every time Sonia returns home after treatment, my wife hopes, and then another blow. The doctor quickly waved her hands. Not here. We'll discuss everything in my office. Sonia needs peace. Lynn hugged the crying Marietta, and they followed the doctor out. The door closed and I heard the key turn. I was closed. Everything was raging inside. Lots of questions. Am I in a mental hospital? Is Marietta really my mom? Is this my attending physician? How long will I be here?
When will I return home? But each of these questions flashed through my head like shooting star and burned out. The eyelids were so heavy. I don't know how many days have passed. It's hard for me to count, and I don't want to. No thoughts. Everything is so clear. I look out the window and listen to the birds singing. Once, a woman visited me. She says she is my mom. But I know that this is all a game. I do not believe anyone. This is a test. You see everything yourself. Just shh. No one yet.
Hi all, my name is Heather, and I'm considered the coolest girl in school. Don't believe? Judge for yourself. I am from a rich family and I have everything I want. Since the age of 5, I have been participating in beauty contests. I have many girlfriends and any guy dreams of me paying attention to him. But I don't like any of them, and all because I fell in love with the biggest loser of our school. Now I will tell you how it happened and what came out of it. In the meantime, subscribe to the channel and click on the bell. The loser's name is Ted, and he transferred to our school last year, and I didn't like him right away. Thick lenses, boring clothes, clumsy gait, and even his bewildered appearance did not arouse interest. From the first day of school, Ted was dubbed the main loser of the school, and no one wanted to be friends with him. Sometimes the girls and I discussed his goofy look and laughed from the huge braces on his teeth, but mostly I didn't notice him, like Ted didn't exist. So it was until one moment, until we were put at the same desk in physics and assigned a joint project. After school, Ted and I stayed alone and spent several hours studying together. And you know, he turned out to be so cool. I was shocked. Ted was passionate about his studies. He read a whole bunch of books and was much more interesting than all the guys I studied with. We talked all day, and in the evening, Ted took me home. We agreed to spend every Thursday after school together and prepare for classes. And over time, I couldn't wait until Thursday finally arrived. I constantly thought about what I would tell him, what I would hear, and how we would spend this day. Although I liked this guy, I was very shy to communicate with him in front of everyone. At school, they continued to laugh at Ted, and I walked by, nodded to him, but he was afraid to say hello loudly so that no one would know that we were talking to him. I told my friends that I was using Ted to improve my academic performance, but really, I just wanted to spend time with him, although I was very shy of all my acquaintances. Therefore, when we went for a walk, I made appointments in the most remote cafes of our city so that no one would see us there. Once, when Ted was walking me home, I realized that I should kiss him. He obviously didn't expect this, but I reached out and kissed him first. He was shocked and said that he also had feelings for me and offered to meet. At this point, I didn't know what to say to him. After all, if someone finds out that we were together, they will also start laughing at me, and all of my friends will turn away from me. But I could not be guided only by someone else's opinion, so I agreed, but asked not to tell anyone about it until I was ready. I already had a plan in my head. I decided to make Ted handsome, and one with whom it would not be embarrassing to appear in the company. I took him shopping and picked up a whole mountain of decent clothes for him. Then I made him change his terrible glasses for lenses and waited for Ted to remove the braces. I also enrolled him in the gym and began to monitor his nutrition. Only a couple of months had passed and Ted was no longer recognizable. My sense of taste did not fail me. Ted became a real handsome man, whom he was not ashamed to show to his friends and walk with him along the main street of our city in his best dress. All of my friends approved of my choice, and finally, I was happy to introduce him to everyone. Ted was not even recognized at first, but in the company, he showed himself so cool that everyone was shocked and quickly accepted him as one of their own. But my happiness did not last long. One day after school, one of my friends, Millie, approached Ted and told him about me, about how I laughed and discussed Ted behind his back, about the fact that I came up with terrible nicknames for him and said all sorts of nonsense about him. Ted realized that even when I started dating him, I was embarrassed by him. And being in a relationship with him, I continued to tell everyone that I communicate with him only because of my studies. And so it went until he became handsome. How upset he was. I thought you were different.
What do you care about someone else's opinion? But it turned out that you are worse than all of them.
Ted left me and started dating Millie. Moreover, all of my friends supported him. As if a few months ago, they themselves did not call Ted a loser. Now I'm completely alone. No boyfriend, no friends, no girlfriends. I understand that I got what I deserved, but it's still bitter. Have you had similar cases in your life? Write, and I will definitely answer in the comments. Oh, the message came. Millie? It's strange. After they started dating Ted, we don't talk. I'm mad at her for telling Ted so many bad things about me. Don't look at Instagram. It's all not true. Millie writes and asks to come. So what happened? And half an hour later, I wiped the tears of a friend. She was on the verge of hysteria because Ted, that harmless Ted, had pranked her. Millie has always been very careful about her impeccable reputation. She only dated good guys. She only got high marks in school. Millie wanted to be perfect for her parents. It stressed me out, of course. After all, it's strange to constantly pretend to please dad and mom. But as a true friend, I accepted Millie for who she is. But Ted hit where it hurts the most. Turns out he and Ted had been to the opening of a new nightclub the other day. It was fun, bright, provocative. Millie drank a few cocktails and became much bolder than usual. Don't think she did nothing wrong. Well, I danced on the dance floor, invited several guys to dance, played a game of desire. No one would have known about this if Ted had not filmed it, surreptitiously on his phone, and then edited several videos that can be understood in different ways. He threw them into our school chat room, and unpleasant comments rained down on Millie. Miss Perfect is actually not perfect at all. Here's the real Millie, a shame, and stuff like that. Millie has been crying at home since morning and does not understand what to do with it. Heather, this is the end. I submitted my candidacy for the editor-in-chief of our school newspaper. I dreamed about it so much, and now, everything. I felt sorry for Millie. After all, we've been friends almost since first grade. Do not cry, we'll figure something out. I'll make Ted delete these videos. When Ted and I were dating, I made him go to the gym. At this time, he should be there. This is true. I looked into the hall and saw Ted admiring himself in front of the mirror. Suddenly, another guy came up to him and clapped Ted on the shoulder, said loudly, "The video turned out great." Well done. Come to the club in the evening. We will discuss how to further take revenge on these upstarts. Uh-oh. So it wasn't Ted's idea. The club? What's the club? And this guy seemed familiar to me. Looks like I'm going to work as a detective tonight. I fell on Ted's tail right after school. At 6, he left the house and walked quickly down the street. After 2 blocks, looking around, he stopped at a scuffed old door. Once there was a cafe with delicious ice cream, but now it's just abandoned. After knocking 3 times, Ted disappeared through the door. Apparently, someone let him in, so I need to get inside somehow. I walked around the building. Bingo! The black entrance and even open. After a couple of minutes, I already heard quiet voices inside the cafe. There were several guys there, and the one from the gym said, "Ted complied with our conditions. These upstarts will never get rid of this now." And suddenly, the light so fell on his face that I clearly saw this protruding mouth and crooked teeth. Yes, it's Doug Stigman. Exactly. I even covered my mouth with my hand to keep from screaming. School upstart. He also submitted his candidacy for the editor-in-chief of the newspaper. I rushed to Millie with all my might. I need to calm her down. Now I know how to fix it. When I told her everything and showed her the video from the cafe, yes, I filmed everything. Millie hugged me tightly. Let's promise each other that the guys will never come between us again. Certainly, I'm so glad we're friends again. And then everything was decided at lightning speed.
Millie dropped a video from the cafe to Doug with a threat that she would show it to the school committee, and then Doug would face a tough punishment. And after a couple of minutes, the video that Ted edited at the nightclub disappeared from the network, and an apology to Millie followed. A week later, Millie became the editor-in-chief of the school newspaper. This story raised her ratings a lot. Ted went around us on the 5th road, and I decided not to look for a new relationship just yet. I liked this story with the persecution of Ted so much that I am now studying the literature on forensic science, footprints, prints, a psychological profile of the criminal. Suddenly, I will become a real detective.